guys, welcome back to another episode of Work Comp Talk. My name is Carmen, your host for this podcast, and joining me as always is Bilal Kassem, president and co-founder, managing attorney of Pacific Workers, the Lawyers for Injured Workers, who also happen to be our sponsors for the podcast, which, by the way, if anyone out there wants to sponsor the podcast, this is the time for you to drop a comment. Not that I'm saying anything wrong with Pacific Workers. If anything, we love working there. We love that the company gets to support this podcast because look at us now. We are recording the last episode of 2022, and it's episode number 51, dude. It's 51 episodes that we've recorded already.
It's 51 great episodes with a lot of information, helping a lot of people out there navigate their way through workers' comp, among other issues.
Literally, something that started as a hobby, something that we just said, hey, let's do a podcast and see what happens, turned out into, 51 episodes later, a lot of engagement on social media. I don't think we've ever thought about, expanding the podcast more than what it should have, but we just, I guess along the lines, learned the value that I was actually giving to the injured workers, and it felt good. I don't know about you, but it feels good to be able to connect with those that otherwise wouldn't have this information.
Yeah, and for clients and stuff too. I've been in the offices we have a couple of times, and I've ran into random clients of the firm that are represented by other attorneys, not myself. And, they recognize me and stuff, and they say, oh, we listen to your podcast, we get a lot of information from it. And it just reassures me that we're doing the right thing and we're really delivering quality material that people find value in. And I'm happy we can do that for people.
That's exciting to know. And it's exciting for us to continue to build onto this podcast. It's been 51 episodes and there's a lot we've accomplished this last year. I feel there was some points where we had to step back because there was a lot of things we were trying to change along the lines of the way we were managing the podcast, because we started realizing that injured workers were actually tuning in. I thought, who's going to want to listen to us just jabber about work comp talk or just exactly workers comp related issues? But to my surprise, I'm really shocked to see how many people are actually enjoying the content, more than anything, requesting certain content to be recorded because they find value in it. That is so cool.
Yeah, and in the holiday spirit of things, I'm thankful to have the listeners that we do. I'm thankful to have the clients we do. I'm thankful that people give us the time of day to listen to what we have to say, because I feel like we deliver value, and there's a lot of information related to workers' comp out there that people just can't go get on their own or navigate on their own because it's either not available or too complex. So I'm happy we can do this.
Yeah, I agree. I'm beyond thankful to have the opportunity to start the podcast and, have you as a co-host now, legit every day. You're sitting here trying to brainstorm some topics that we can potentially come out with and figure out what is the need within the workers comp issues that injured workers go through. And, you and I can literally sit here and discuss, hey, what are some of the things you're seeing out there? What are some of the things that injured workers constantly ask you? What can we make what can we make out of a topic? There's a lot of information. And like you said, it's not easily out there for everyone to just digest. It's not like you're going to walk into a lunchroom and there's going to be a huge signage that says, hey, if you get injured at work, step 1, do this, step 2. There
legally,
isn't
they're
that.
Supposed to be, though.
I mean, it's very vague, the information that's out there. And I'll tell you, this year has been a really, really interesting year. I think we've learned and we've grown so much in the community. We've put ourselves out there more than ever. I actually, not that long ago, had the opportunity to go through the entire workers' comp system. I'm still kind of in it, and it wasn't personally me. My mom had an accident. I walked her to the work clinic. I went through the whole process with her, and it was, even me being the podcast host, and we constantly talk about, obviously, workers' comp stuff, I was lost. I was like, if I know this stuff and I kind of know how this works, how is someone who has no idea or who's never even heard of workers' comp, how are they supposed to figure this out? It was okay, when is the adjuster supposed to call my mom? When is she going to get seen for this issue? They took care of her and right away at, Concentra. But there were so many unanswered questions that I was just okay, what's next? And I'm just sitting here putting myself in the shoes of the injured worker, and it's just wow. there is so much we have untouched, so many topics that we haven't even discussed that I can't tell you. I'm excited for 2023.
Yeah, and for everyone who's listening, if there's specific topics that you want to hear more about, we'd love to get your input. I'm obviously experienced in workers' comp, and so the way I think about workers' comp might be a little bit different than someone like your mom who's never gone through it before and is now figuring it out for the first time. And so, for that reason, there's a lot of topics that I feel are worth discussing, but maybe those aren't necessarily the topics that everyone really wants to know about if they're going through it for the first time. And so we'd love to get feedback. We'd love to get your input, in particular if there's things that you want to know about, even if it's specific issues related to your case. We're happy to kind of talk through it. Of course, it's not legal advice unless you're a client of ours, but we're happy to kind of run through examples and talk about issues that are happening in various cases, because I think those are learning experiences for other people going through the same thing as well.
And I think that's why it works, Bilal. You said a really key important fact here, which is you're the expert, you're the one that studied, you dived into the books, and you wanted this for your life, the knowledge. In my sense, I come from the perspective of not knowing everything for workers' comp, so I get to question you on things that don't make sense to me, and I put myself in the shoes of the person that is also not 100% into the books and knows everything about the workers' comp laws. So it's a great balance that I feel sometimes I have to kind of like, okay, that didn't make sense to me. It's not going to make sense to the listeners. Can you rephrase that? Or can you say it in a different way? And I think this is why it works. It's just a casual conversation where we're discussing things that we think are going to benefit the injured worker into understanding the system a little bit more. And more than that, it's also just trying to get as much information as we can out there. And we just, not that long ago, had a discussion, a few days ago, where I was questioning a certain phrase, and I asked you, the last episode we just recorded, which if you have not watched, I highly suggest you do. We intertwined the worlds of medicine and law. We had the opportunity to go to CSMS in San Diego, where doctors, those QME, those qualified medical evaluators, get to sit down and ask attorneys like Bilal and say, hey, what about this? They have questions too, along with attorneys having questions for them as well. So it's getting those two worlds together. And there was a lot of things that were mentioned. And as I was editing some of those footage, I was just like, oh my God, this could be a topic. We've never talked about this. We've never talked, about that. And it was just, there's just so much that we still have to dig through for 2023. I can reassure you that we'll for sure have another 50 episodes by the end of next year.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it.
Are you really?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a gift to be able to help people not only in the courtroom but outside of the courtroom too, just doing stuff like this informally as well. So, not everyone wants a lawyer, not everyone may trust a lawyer.
Yeah.
Some people want to navigate it on their own, and that's cool. But, at least if they're not our client, I feel the least thing I can do is put the information out there to try and help those people who are trying to do it on their own.
Yeah, you see it a lot, right? There's those that choose to not go through the avenue of hiring an attorney, and they can survive, but as an attorney, you also know how much they lose just because they're not represented by someone who understands the system, and because the system is a system that is gonna rob you of certain things if you don't have that legal battle happening. And that's I think, to me, that's the eye opener, because I've seen clients come through here and, like you've mentioned before, they've received 4 times more than what their initial offer was on a settlement. Had they not had an attorney, they would have probably settled for that offer and would have been struggling.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a Rubik's Cube, right? You take like some like champion Rubik's Cube person, they can solve it in like 5 seconds, 2 seconds, one-handed, blindfolded, like all this stuff. And then, like, if you gave someone who's never seen a Rubik's Cube before and said, hey, match up all the colors, you just sit there and watch them struggle and struggle and struggle. They may get it done at some point, but it's going to be messy. It's going to take forever and probably frustrate the crap out of them. So
I mean, I'm not going to lie. I used to be the person that used to have the sticker one, and I take all the stickers off.
Just take the stickers and change the colors. Done. See, that's a good hack. I wish you could do that in workers' comp, but...
I mean, it would be nice. I'm not going to lie. But speaking about doing so much for others, I am beyond thankful And I think this podcast episode is going to turn into everything we've been able to accomplish and how grateful we are to have listeners and injured workers put their trust on this podcast. But not only on the podcast, our sponsors, Pacific Workers, your company, has really shown up for communities this year more than any other year. I know there is, so inside for Pacific Workers, there's little clubs inside. So you can be part of the fitness club, you can be part of the book club, and you can be part of the foundations team or the party planning committee. And part of the foundations team is to seek out very, I guess you can say, organizations that are going to actually put their foot where their money is, or how do you say that? Put their money
where their mouth is.
Where their mouth is. That's what I meant. And this year we've been able to establish a lot of relationships. For example, the Unity Council, who feeds over 1,000 families a month every Wednesday in the Fruitvale district. And these are families that really are going through some hardships, especially COVID hitting a lot of these family members, losing their jobs, and just so many different ways, constantly helping out the firefighters. We were able to, donate a lot of the Toys for Tots this year, and seeing all the kids that are in need of a toy or a hug, a teddy bear, and just that love, and that we're able to give back to the community because of the trust the clients and the listeners put in Pacific Workers. It's a beautiful feeling.
Yeah, and I think that's just an extension of what we are as a law firm, because we go and do battle for people in the courtroom, but also in the streets. We're out there in the communities, and we're not just writing checks. Sure, we love to write checks too, right? There's organizations that are great organizations. They really deliver the money to the people in need, not the in-between administrative stuff. And I think that's great too, but we also donate a lot of our resources in terms of our human capital out there, actually physically being present and giving back to those who need it most, whether that's handing out food, backpacks for kids in need, things like that. We're kind of all over the place. And so kind of double duty.
It's triple duty at this point. There's just so much we dive into. And if you have not yet learned about Pacific Workers, this would be a time for you to go visit the website, pacificworkers.com, which, by the way, we're about to relaunch for 2023. New things coming. But at the end of the day, this is who we are. We are just the average person who wants to continue to help the community. I think our ultimate goal has always been like that. It's been to help others more so than anything. And when you took that leap of faith and decided to become an attorney for workers' comp, why that route? Why not a criminal attorney?
I think there's a lot of different ways you can help people. I think my career actually started representing employers and insurance companies. And the pay structure at big firms like that is that it's billable hours, meaning you're counting the time of day that you're working on projects for your client, and you're billing them for that time. And that's how the firm makes money. And in a lot of instances, it's like this big pyramid scheme where everyone's hoping to make partner at the firm so they can reap the benefits of the associate attorney's billing. And a lot of the focus is not necessarily the results-driven experience for your client, but the billing and generating revenue for the firm. And I really just looked at that as, it's taking money from people, and that's all,
Yeah.
Some people may say taking money from employers and insurance companies isn't bad, but in a different context, and I didn't like what I was doing. I didn't like that I was seeing people suffer, and my optimal result was for them to get less than what they deserve, to mitigate costs on behalf of the client, and quite frankly, bill the crap out of them doing it, right? And so my gears quickly shifted, and that's when I came over to start this business. And I think really at the heart of it was just seeing the tangible results of helping people day in, day out, really making a difference for the little guy, making a difference for the people who are making a difference in my life. The people, the delivery drivers, the warehouse workers, the firefighters, the medical professionals, the teachers, the people who really make up our communities and make our world function. Those are the people who need help, not the insurance carriers and such. And so I think getting into this business, I saw a direct way that I could do that and impact lives on a daily basis.
Well, I'm glad you did, because not every day you get to work with someone who can throw on a t-shirt and just be like, hey, I'm going to go out there and help you guys, whether that's delivering food, whether that's serving hot meals. You put yourself out there, and I feel a lot of people can also read that through the camera. It's that genuine person. It's the genuine company. It's a lot of things we can dive into, a lot of things we can kind of reflect on from the past 2 years. COVID has really came in and literally changed everyone's world. And if it had not been for COVID, we probably wouldn't even be doing this podcast.
There's good silver linings, I guess. But,
yeah.
You know, my business partner, Eric, I think when we had Foundation during COVID, really the focus was doing things to mitigate the spread of COVID. Like our initiative to deliver 5,000 masks and support our communities in that route. And I'm really happy to see that the foundation and the podcast have, lived beyond that and really expanded in such a beautiful way.
It's only going to get better from here. I can see 2023 being a year of lots of more topics, lots of more discussions about workers' compensation and beyond. There's just so much more. We were just talking about this not that long ago, how as we're diving down our episodes and say, okay, what have we recorded this year? What are our most listened to podcasts? Some of those are mainly, why does workers' comp suck? Why does it take so long? Why don't I get paid so much? It's why is workers' comp so shitty? But there's also good things along the lines when it comes to workers' comp. And I'm curious to dive, since we're talking about being grateful, what are you grateful, Bilal, for the workers' comp system? Not everything can be bad.
No, there's a lot of good in it too. I think just some of the structure in workers' comp I'm really thankful for. In personal injury law, for example, if you get hurt, no one pays your lost wages. You don't get medical care unless you know a doctor who can do it on a lien basis, or you have medical insurance to take care of it, and even then you have your copays. Workers' comp is a system that's designed to provide you with your lost wages while you're recovering from work. It's designed to pay for the medical care so you don't have to worry about insurance or bills or things like that. I think just by design, there's a lot of good intentions that went into the system as is, even though there's bad actors involved in working the way through the system, the insurance company denying cases, paying less than they should and all that stuff. But they're still held to a certain standard. And there's still things that they have to do. And I think just by default, making the system geared towards the benefit of the injured worker without having to fight for every inch is a good start.
It is.
And I'm really thankful that it's designed that way. In fact, there's a labor code section. I'm blanking on the top of my head. It's like 3505 or something like that. But it literally says that the labor code itself is designed and should be interpreted for the benefit of the injured worker, which means just by default, everything that you read out there in the law should be interpreted slanted towards the injured worker's benefit. Which it's like, hey, if you're telling me I get to start on the 50-yard line and not, in the end zone.
In the end zone.
Yeah, and work my way all the way across the field, I'm already halfway there. That's a great start.
It is. I guess if you look at it that way, you're right. I don't think there's other parts of the law that take care of you as much as workers' comp, to be honest. Like, maybe, but as far as I'm concerned, and the way you're putting, personal injury, meaning you get into an accident out, it really does take care of you. Imagine if you were hurt, if you were injured, and then you can't even go to the doctor because the doctor won't take you because you have no money. Then you're shit out of luck.
Yeah.
So it is a positive. I think another positive that I've always seen, and we've discussed this in a couple episodes, is if things were not to work out the way you've expected them to after your injury, say you're not going to go back to that job you've always done, they give you the opportunity to retrain, and they pay you. That's giving you a second chance. That's awesome.
Yeah, the vocational retraining benefits are pretty cool. The idea that if you're displaced from your employment, you get additional benefits to help re-educate or retrain yourself. Of course, again, it's one of those things that falls a little short, but it comes from a good place.
Yeah.
It's designed to help people. At baseline, any benefits are better than nothing. And I think, unfortunately, through lobbying and special interests and things like that, workers' comp has gotten watered down a little bit more than I'd care to see. But at the same time, there are still benefits there for people, I think, that are phenomenal.
Yeah. Like, for example, attorneys not charging you up front just to take your case or just to even help you navigate through the system. That's a huge benefit that an attorney is not saying, okay, well, you need to pay me $2,000 up front and then I'll start your case.
Well, you'd asked earlier, why not criminal defense? Criminal defense is an example of this, where criminal defense attorney is going to charge you up front.
Yeah.
They're not going to say, hey, you can pay me at the end of this, or I'll take a little bit of whatever I get you, and if I get you nothing, you don't have to pay me anything. They say, hey, you want me to defend you on a DUI? I want $5,000 up front. Or, you have a assault and battery charge or a murder charge or something like really life or death for you as a person. And they're like, hey, I want $50,000 up front.
Where are you going to get that money from?
Yeah, unless you have the money, too bad, so sad. Like, you're going to have to deal with the public defender or someone else, if you can't really afford a private defense attorney. So, that's not necessarily access to justice like you do hiring a work comp attorney, where they say, I guess for the most part, don't pay me anything up front.
And if you don't win,
yeah, and if you don't win, there's no bills. There's nothing you owe me out of pocket for this. This is just kind of, it's a freebie until I get you something.
Yeah, it's kind of like I'll take a hit. I'll trust that your case is going to go towards the way we think it's going to go. If you lose, I lose, and I'm not going to charge you for it. Like, that's pretty solid.
Yep. And as attorneys, we eat a lot of costs, and we pay for a lot of things kind of out of pocket just to see that cases go the right way. There's one time I remember my client was in Stockton. I think she had to go to Merced for a epidural injection.
Oof.
And after an epidural, the doctors won't release you to drive home by yourself.
Of course not. You can't feel shit.
Yeah, so the client was really stressed out because the insurance company wasn't going to pay for transportation. And I said, don't worry, we'll take care of it. So I woke up at 4 a.m. I called her an Uber from my Uber app. I made sure the driver was there. I coordinated between them, had the driver take her all the way there. Fell back asleep for a little bit, woke up again, and made sure. I called her an Uber to drive back home, like an hour the other way. So yeah, we came out of pocket a few $100s to make sure that she went to her appointment and she got her epidural injection. That's not money I got paid back for,
right.
But it was something we just did out of, the kindness of our hearts as people and the type of law firm we are to help out our client. But
that's awesome.
It's not a cost the client had to eat up front. So again, in workers' comp, provided you're with a good attorney who's willing to help out, there's a lot that goes on our bill that doesn't necessarily get put over onto the client side. So.
Literally, you just reminded me of a situation when we were in office, because we still have the offices, but when we were in-house, when COVID did not exist, there was many times where we would learn from some of the attorneys and their teams that their client was currently going through situations that, either they were left with zero money for food or for the holidays. And I remember everyone would scramble, like, hey, let's figure out how we can help this client out. We would buy a basket. Everyone would bring non-perishable food. Everyone would bring toys and stuff. And that person would then go deliver or have the client come pick up, some of the stuff we had for them, which continues to grow. Now we do it as a client appreciation raffle where, we give clients the opportunity to help themselves in times where they need it the most. If anybody needs the help, it's the injured worker. One, they can't work. They can't go back to work. And if they're working, they're not making as much as they used to. They're not feeling okay. They have bills to pay regardless. Bills don't wait for you. They have a family. They're already stressing with the injury. The last thing we want on their mind is to also stress about the holidays. We've given away trees and presents. This year, Bilal, we gave away 3 families, as a matter of fact, got a holiday feast. So they got their entire dinner paid for more than 5 people. They also got an extra set of cash to be able to buy gifts as well. So there was no skipping out on the holidays because we were able to do that. Gas prices went up the roof. We were able to fill up people's gas tanks for the month. So that's freaking dope.
Yeah, that's great.
That's why we do this. We do this because we're excited. We're grateful for everything. I'm excited for 2023. Again, if there is anything you want us to talk about, drop it in the comments. We're on TikTok, we're on Instagram, we're on Twitter, we're on LinkedIn, we're on Facebook, Google Plus, or Google My Business, and YouTube. I mean, there's just so much for you to dive into. And if you have not yet, subscribe to our newsletter. We send out weekly newsletters giving you a heads up things that are happening around your community, things that we're doing, things that you can do to better yourself within your case. I mean, it's just fun. It's been a fun year.
Yeah, and bigger and better next year.
I hope so. Well, that's all I have on my end. Is there anything else you want to talk about as far as you being grateful besides your cats?
No, I'm very grateful to just have good health and have the opportunity to be here, have my cats, my wife, my family. It's the holiday season, and as always, I encourage everyone to engage in gratitude practice and take time to think about the good stuff and be thankful for what you do have. It's so easy to get caught up in a lot of the negativity out there in the world, and oftentimes we overlook the good things. No matter how small they are, they're still good, and I think it's important we all acknowledge those things and be thankful for those opportunities and what we have. So
agreed. Well, thank you guys so much. We will catch you on the next episode. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you're notified when we do drop the next episode.